Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandra.
And I'm Diksha Bisla, and on the show today, the US has stormed and seized a large oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. Well, Venezuela has accused Washington of blatant theft, calling this an act of international piracy. We're going to unpack this on the show today. Stay tuned.
Also on World DNA, panic and confusion has gripped hundreds of US H-1B visa applicants in India after the Trump administration rolled out new rules requiring them to submit their social media for vetting. And reports of applicant interviews being scrapped, being postponed by many months have also emerged. We'll get you the latest on that. Let's start with the headlines.
We just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large.
Donald Trump announces that US has seized an oil tanker off Venezuela's coast, escalating tensions. Attorney General Pam Bondi says that the vessel was part of illicit network transporting sanctioned Venezuelan and Iranian oil.
They would like us to go to a meeting over the weekend in Europe, and we'll make a determination depending on what they come back with.
Ukraine sends Washington an updated plan to end Russia's invasion, while Donald Trump criticizes European leaders, saying fresh talks could risk wasting time amid disagreements over the US strategy.
US lawmakers pass a bipartisan $900 billion defense bill that strengthens support for Europe and restricts President Trump's ability to reduce US troop levels or scale back NATO-related missions.
Panic hits hundreds of Indian H-1B visa applicants after Trump administration introduces new rules requiring social media vetting, leading to cancelled or delayed interviews.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi agreed to meet very soon, the Israeli PMO says in a social media post, adding that the two leaders held a warm and friendly phone call.
Israel reopens its border crossing with Jordan into the occupied West Bank to allow trucks to Gaza after nearly 3 months of closure. The crossing had been closed following the September killing of an Israeli soldier.
Rwanda-backed M23 militia captures most of the key eastern DR Congo town in Uvira in a move that Burundi calls a middle finger to the United States, and this is after the signing of a peace deal in Washington.
Tens of thousands of people take to the streets across Bulgaria to protest against the government and corruption as anger over the country's draft budget boils over into a widening anti-graft movement.
The Fed cut rates for a third straight time, but signaled that it may now pause as inflation remains high and the job market softens. Powell called it a close call with a deepening split inside the Fed over how fast to ease next year.
And a new US visa rule requiring H-1B and H-4 workers and applicants to make their social media accounts public is set to come into effect on the 15th of December.
Well, ahead of the deadline, there is confusion, chaos and anxiety among visa holders and applicants. The new rules for visa vetting would apply to both renewals and fresh applications. Consular officers will review public posts on platforms like X, Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn as part of a wider process to vet visa applications.
The move has sparked widespread anxiety. Over the last couple of decades, the internet has democratized public expression and free speech. From Delhi to Dallas, opinions are shared at fingertips in real time. Political memes, satire and critical commentary, they are commonplace, but the new rules, they signal that even one tweet, one meme or a blog piece could end the American dream for millions. Adding to the chaos and confusion are visa interview appointments, which have been cancelled across several Indian consulates.
Well, many applicants have reported that their December interview slots have now been pushed to March 2026. The US Embassy in India has also cautioned visa applicants to not show up on previously scheduled dates if candidates have been notified of rescheduled dates. The delay is reportedly to allow authorities enough time to carry out social media vetting. However, what remains unclear are the parameters which will guide the visa vetting process.
The US immigration authorities are yet to specify the criteria which will be used to assess social media accounts of the candidates. What kind of vetting is going to take place and what are the parameters for it? There's no clear criteria in place as of now, and applicants fear that authorities may dig up posts made in the past to reject their applications in the present.
The decision to vet social media accounts of applicants was announced by the US in the wake of pro-Palestinian protests at several US university campuses. The Trump administration had lashed out at universities for enabling anti-Semitism and vowed to crack down on students and immigrants whose views posed a threat to US national security. And to discuss this development further, we're now being joined by Johanna LeBlanc. She is National Security Law Analyst and Foreign Relations Expert. Thank you so much for joining us in the broadcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I'm curious to know, are there any parameters as we're speaking for the US social media vetting, and what kind of tweet or post can deny an applicant H-1B visa? Because as we understand, the vetting and the parameters, without the lack of a clear guidance, it could be rather subjective. So how do we navigate this? Because it has inevitably caused a lot of chaos and anxiety.
Certainly, but I think first and foremost, we need to talk about the reality that no country contributes more to America when it comes to H-1B visas than India. You're talking about 70%. So that is a significant number. So certainly Indians who seek to come to the United States to work and to contribute to the development of this nation will be impacted by this policy. But another thing is that the policy is very, very vague. And as you said in your opening, it's very subjective, right? In terms of what exactly is the administration looking for, or State Department, DHS looking for when they're processing various applications. But what we can see based on past experience is that the U.S. has placed a huge emphasis on social media posts that they deem that are to be anti-Semitic, and also social media posts that they deem have a negative national security risk.
Understood. Joanna, as far as the posts are concerned, a rule like this, which is not coming from precedent, there's no foreign policy that it can be threaded to. What deems an incorrect post? Is it an anti-Trump post? And should Americans also be concerned about this, for having any kind of posts or any kind of opinions out there on social media, even from years ago, which can put them in trouble going forward with some kind of a new rule coming up?
I think that is the big issue here, that we don't know the parameters, right? So that means anything that a consular officer may deem to be a violation of whatever parameters that they have set forth within the State Department, or a consular officer feels may be a violation of the U.S. national security, could be a violation. So I think that's the issue, right? I think people want more guidance. We want to know more about how does this impact the work sector? And I think the next thing you're probably going to see is lawsuits, especially by companies that employ HB1 visa workers. But I think it's going to expand beyond H-1B visa workers. I think it's going to impact just about anyone who is looking to enter into the United States. And let's be frank here, the United States has always done its due diligence in terms of vetting applicants when they're looking to enter into the United States. But I think that this is expanding that process and specifically looking at digital footprints, which is something that I think all of us have to be very mindful of as we utilize the internet, because a lot of the information you post on there could potentially impact you. Something that could be very innocent, could be seen as a national security threat to a government, or it could be seen as trying to undermine democracy in a particular country.
I hear your point, Ms. LeBlanc, but something as an opinion may not always mean an action or a call to action after that. So it's very grey at this point. We'll need to wait and watch how this one gets navigated. It's the Trump organization, it's the Trump administration rather. And if they're putting out a rule, gradually it's going to get fine-tuned or it may get rolled back. We've seen that enough times in the past. Let's see how this one rolls out. This was Johanna LeBlanc joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the US has seized a large oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela amid escalating tensions between the countries.
Venezuela has accused Washington of blatant theft, calling this an act of international piracy. And the move comes during a huge US military buildup, which is already taking place since a number of months in the Caribbean, and strikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean. Now, a video which has just been released hours ago, it was published by the US Attorney General Pam Bondi, and it showed US troops rappelling from a helicopter into a tanker's deck and then entering the ship's bridge with rifles raised. Bondi said that the tanker was part of an illicit shipping network used to carry sanctioned oil from Venezuela and Iran.
President Trump soon confirmed the seizure, boasting that it was a large tanker, very large, the largest one that was ever seized. Asked what would happen with the oil, Trump said, "We keep it, I guess."
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people.
We're interested in the seizure of this tanker. What happens to the oil on this ship?
Well, we keep it, I guess.
Where does it go? What does it go to?
Well, you have to follow the tanker. You're a good newsman. Just follow the tanker.
Do you know where it's going?
Follow it. Get a helicopter and follow the tanker.
Is it sure it's going to
But we're going to, I assume we're going to keep the oil.
Venezuela's foreign ministry said in a statement it strongly denounces and condemns what constitutes blatant theft and an act of international piracy, publicly announced by the President of the United States. US media has reported that the tanker was heading for Cuba and was detained by the US Coast Guard. Bondi claimed that the oil tanker has been sanctioned by the United States due to its involvement in an illicit oil shipping network supporting foreign terrorist organizations.
Well, Trump's administration has piled pressure on Maduro in recent months, deploying a fleet of warships and the world's largest aircraft carrier under the pretext of combating drug trafficking. Well, it has also carried out deadly strikes under Operation Southern Spear on more than 20 alleged drug boats in the region, killing at least 87 people.
Maduro, meanwhile, demanded an end to US intervention in his country, Venezuela. He again made the call for a unified South America, talking about the historical state of the Grand Colombia. The Venezuelan reporter appeared on the streets and marched with supporters through downtown Caracas. He even danced on the stage and sang a new song with lyrics, "Don't worry, be happy."
No al intervencionismo.
We say no to interventionism, no to plans for destabilization and regime change. The U.S. government should focus on governing its own country.
Se dediquen a gobernar su país. No more Vietnam. No more Somalia. No more Iraq. No more Afghanistan. No more Libya.
Ukraine has reportedly sent United States an updated plan for ending the war with Russia.
Well, this as US President Donald Trump laid it to European leaders in the latest sign of a growing transatlantic rift. A first US plan involved Ukraine surrendering land that Russia has not captured. Well, it was seen by Ukraine and its European allies as caving in to too many of Russia's hardline demands and has since been revised. A Ukrainian official told AFP that the revised plan takes into account Ukraine's vision, calling it a further proposal for adequate solutions to problematic issues. The official, however, declined to disclose the details pending the reaction of the American side.
Trump, who has been pressuring the Ukrainian President Zelensky to agree to a US plan, swiftly expressed impatience with both Kiev and its European allies. Trump said he spoke with the leaders of France, Germany and UK about Ukraine in pretty strong words, adding that the US was no longer spending money directly on Kiev, but instead selling weapons to NATO allies that then supplied Ukraine.
We're selling basically missiles and everything else to NATO, and NATO is paying us, and then they distribute it to who they want. I guess they're mostly distributing to Ukraine, but we're not spending money. But you know, we're spending a lot of time and a lot of effort.
On Monday, Ukraine's European allies put on a show of support for Zelensky as they expressed skepticism about parts of the latest US proposal to end the war. Now, Trump added that the Europeans wanted to hold fresh talks this weekend, but warned that they risked wasting time.
They would like us to go to a meeting over the weekend in Europe, and we'll make a determination depending on what they come back with. We don't want to be wasting time. Sometimes you have to let people fight it out, and sometimes you don't. But the problem with letting people fight it out is you're losing thousands of people a week. It's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous.
Tension remains high on the battlefield. Kiev claimed its sea drones hit and disabled a tanker involved in trading Russian oil as it sailed through Ukraine's exclusive economic zone in the Black Sea to the Russian port of Novorossiysk. The attack is the third sea drone strike in 2 weeks on part of Russia's so-called shadow fleet, which is unregulated, and a group of unregulated ships that Kiev says are helping Moscow export large quantities of oil and fund its war in Ukraine despite Western sanctions.
Now, according to an official at the Security Service of Ukraine, the Russian tanker was sailing at maximum speed with its transponders off when powerful explosions hit its stern, inflicting critical damage on the vessel. However, he made no mention of possible casualties in the incident. And tensions remain high along the Thailand-Cambodia border after fresh clashes that erupted between the two militaries.
And while this happened, at least 5 Thai soldiers and 7 Cambodian civilians have been killed in the latest fighting so far. Of course, those numbers are developing further and further. Now, a video released by the Thai military showed drones being used to drop bombs on Cambodian targets along the border. Plumes of smoke can be seen rising from a building after the attack.
Amid the tensions, over 500,000 people have fled border areas to seek shelter in makeshift camps. Many lack access to even the basic necessities and are uncertain about when the situation along the border would normalize.
Residents along the border areas are bearing the brunt of the clashes. Several houses in border areas have been shelled, forcing thousands to flee and seek shelter in temporary camps.
โอ้ก็เสียใจอย่างแรงเนี่ยนะครับมันพังไปแล้วเนาะนะทำยังไงอ่ะ ไม่รู้จะพูดยังไงไว้อ่ะมันก็เสียใจจน ร้องไห้แล้วเนาะเสียดายบ้านเนาะอุตส่าห์ทำมาจนอายุปูนนี่50 กว่าแล้วผมมีปัญญาที่ไหนมาซ่อมนี่
As the fighting entered the third day, artillery fire boomed over Cambodia's border town of Samraong. The town, which is located 25 kilometers from the Thai border, appeared deserted as shop fronts were shuttered and streets emptied.
The Thai army accused Cambodian forces of firing rockets that reportedly landed at a hospital. Still photographs released by the Thai army showed medical staff gathered in a ward. Thai military said that it had evacuated medical personnel and critical patients to a shelter.
Well, this week's clashes are the deadliest since 5 days of fighting in July. The fresh clashes have erupted in at least 5 disputed border locations. Both countries have blamed each other for the renewed fighting. Now, US President Donald Trump has said that he would make a phone call to halt the conflict.
And I hate to say this, one named Cambodia, Thailand, that had started up today, tomorrow I'll have to make a phone call, and I think they'll get us. Who else could say, I'm going to make a phone call and stop a war of two very powerful countries, Thailand and Cambodia? They're going at it again. But I'll do it. So we're making peace through strength. That's what we're doing.
When the clashes last broke out in July, US President Trump had brokered peace between the two neighbors. Back then, Trump had claimed that he had threatened to put tariff negotiations on hold unless both sides stopped fighting.
However, Thai Foreign Minister has said that the threat of tariffs should not be used to pressure the country to start talks with Cambodia. He added that it was up to Cambodia to make the first move to show that it wants to de-escalate the conflict.
The US President Donald Trump has said that an announcement is expected early next year on which global leaders will be chosen to sit on the new Gaza Peace Board. Listen to this.
Well, we'll do it early next year, and the Board of Peace are going to, it'll be one of the most legendary boards ever. Everybody wants to be on it. It's mostly going to be, I guess, we weren't thinking about it that way, but they want to all do it. Basically, it'll be the heads of the most important countries.
Meanwhile, one of the most senior leaders of Hamas, Khalid Mashal, has indicated that the group is open to a weapons freeze, though it firmly rejects the full disarmament demanded under the US-sponsored peace proposal. Now, in an interview with Al Jazeera, he said that such an arrangement might be achievable with what he described as pragmatic American thinking in ongoing talks.
The US brokered ceasefire in place since the 10th of October brought a halt to the war that erupted after Hamas' October 7, 2023 attack on Israel. But the truce remains highly fragile, with both sides exchanging accusations of violations almost on a daily basis.
In Europe, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has reaffirmed his support for a two-state solution during a visit to Spain, where he met with Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. Now, Spain officially recognized the state of Palestine in May 2024.
We reaffirm, Mr. Prime Minister, our commitment to the two-state solution based on legitimate international resolutions and to achieving the establishment of the State of Palestine within the June 4, 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem next the State of Israel, which we have recognized, and for the two states to live in security and peace.
A federal judge in New York has ordered the unsealing of grand jury records on Jeffrey Epstein.
And the latest in a series of court decisions pushing for greater public access to the documents connected to the convicted sex offender. On Wednesday, the U.S. District Judge Richard Berman ruled that grand jury materials from Epstein's 2019 federal case will be made public. That case, involving accusations of sexually exploiting minors, ended abruptly after Epstein's suicide in prison during pre-trial detention.
Now, grand jury records are generally kept secret, but Judge Berman pointed to a bill that President Donald Trump signed last month requiring the Justice Department to release all unclassified records regarding the disgraced financier by December 19th.
On Tuesday, another federal judge agreed to unseal grand jury documents associated with the investigation of Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime associate. Maxwell is serving a 20-year federal sentence for trafficking a minor.
Additionally, a Florida judge has ordered the release of grand jury transcripts from the state's earlier investigation of Epstein, which resulted in his 2008 plea to soliciting a minor for prostitution.
There's no guarantee that the new documents will contain new revelations, and it remains unclear exactly when and how the Justice Department will release all the documents to the public.
Epstein's case has remained politically charged for years now, with President Trump, once a close friend of the financier, fighting for months to prevent the release of files about him, which are held by the Justice Department.
Now, Trump and some of his allies had long suggested that political figures, particularly Democrats, were shielded from scrutiny in the Epstein saga, portraying the case as symbolic of how wealthy and well-connected individuals can evade accountability.
And with that, it's time for us to slip into a very short break on World DNA.
But we will be back after this short break. On the other side, Pakistan is considering relocating former Prime Minister Imran Khan from the Adiara jail in Rawalpindi, citing the need to restore order in Rawalpindi. We'll bring you all the details.
Also coming up on the other side, Indigo has filed a revised winter flight schedule with the DGCA, and this is after the regulator asked the airline to scale back operations by 10%. We're going to get you all this on the other side. Stay tuned. You're watching Beyond World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Deeksha. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss. Let's start with the headlines.
Venezuelan opposition leader and Nobel laureate Maria Corina Machado makes her first public appearance in nearly a year from the balcony of her Oslo hotel, hours after her daughter accepts the Nobel Prize on her behalf.
We've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large.
Donald Trump announces that US has seized an oil tanker off Venezuela's coast, escalating tensions. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the vessel was part of an illicit network transporting sanctioned Venezuelan and Iranian oil.
Trump says he plans to speak today with leaders of Thailand and Cambodia to demand an end to renewed border clashes, which have displaced 500,000 people, noting that the ceasefire he had promoted had broken down.
We discussed Ukraine in pretty strong words, and we'll see what happens. I mean, we're waiting to hear answers.
Trump says he had strong exchanges with leaders of France, Britain and Germany over how to handle war in Ukraine, acknowledging disputes during the call and noting key issues must be resolved before further talks.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi agreed to meet very soon, the Israeli PMO says in a social media post, adding that the two leaders held a warm and friendly phone call.
Israel reopens its border crossing with Jordan into the occupied West Bank to allow trucks to Gaza. After nearly 3 months of closure, the crossing had been closed following the September killing of an Israeli soldier.
Rwanda-backed M23 militia captures most of the key eastern DR Congo town in Uvira in a move that Burundi calls a middle finger to the United States. This is after signing of a peace deal in Washington.
Tens of thousands of people take to streets across Bulgaria to protest against the government and corruption as anger over country's draft budget boils over into a widening anti-graft movement.
Mexico is joining the US in imposing tougher tariffs on Chinese and other Asian imports, with duties reaching up to 50%. The move aims to protect local industries. Pakistan is considering relocating former Prime Minister Imran Khan from the Adiala jail in Rawalpindi.
And this as protests and tensions between the government and PTI continue to grow. According to reports, a senior Punjab government official confirmed that authorities are weighing options to shift the PTI leader to another facility. Among the alternatives under discussion is District Jail Attock. Reports claim provincial and federal authorities are jointly reviewing the situation, citing the need to restore order in Rawalpindi.
Well, Prime Minister's coordinator for information, Ikhtiar Wali, claimed that continuous demonstrations outside Adiala jail had disturbed the lives of people in the vicinity. He accused PTI leaders of attempting to spread chaos under the guise of protest, adding that many within the party want their jail leader transferred elsewhere.
Plans to relocate Imran Khan come following recent tensions outside the Adiala jail when prison authorities refused his sisters and lawyers from meeting him.
Khan supporters launched a protest clashing with police who used water cannons to disperse the crowd amid and seize vehicles in the early hours of Wednesday. Well, the PTI had condemned the police action, calling it inhumane and accusing authorities of depriving Imran Khan of even his basic rights. The PTI alleged that despite court orders, Khan's family was denied access to him.
Meanwhile, the PTI plans to hold a national conference later this month to discuss Pakistan's ongoing issues and present a national agenda. The move comes after Inter-Services Public Relations ISPR Director General Lieutenant General Ahmad Sharif Chaudhry accused Imran Khan for creating and spreading an anti-army rhetoric which was becoming a national security threat. This sparked a war of words between the ruling Sharif government and PTI. Indigo Airlines has filed a revised winter flight schedule with the DGCA.
And this is after the regulator asked the airline to scale back operations by 10%. And this is due to doubts about the ability to manage previously approved capacity. Well, following the submission of its revised schedule, the airline is expected to redistribute flights on key routes and reduce frequencies where delays and cancellations were common last month. Now, the goal is to improve punctuality and avoid delays across its domestic network.
Meanwhile, aviation safety regulator DGCA has set up a dedicated oversight team at Indigo Airlines corporate office in Gurugram after noting widespread passenger inconvenience caused by recent flight cancellations and delays at various airports across the country.
The 8-member team, led by Deputy Chief Flight Operations Inspector Captain Vikram Sharma, will monitor fleet strength, crew availability, utilization hours, unplanned leaves and standby crew for cockpit and cabin staff. 2 members will be stationed at the office on a rotational basis, and the officers will also track daily cancellations, refund processing, on-time performance, passenger compensation and baggage delivery.
On Wednesday, Indigo cancelled nearly 220 flights at 3 major airports despite CEO Peter Elber's claim that the airline's operations were back on track. Of the 220 cancelled flights, 137 were at the Delhi airport, 21 at Mumbai, 61 at Bengaluru.
Furthermore, the DGCA has directed the Indigo CEO to provide detailed data and updates on the airline's network-wide operational disruptions. Elbers, along with senior officials from all relevant departments, are scheduled to appear before the regulator today at 3 p.m. The DGCA and the Ministry of Civil Aviation have been holding regular meetings with Indigo in response to the crisis. In Nepal, representatives of the Gen Z People's Movement and the interim government have signed a 10-point agreement amid a rising rift within the group.
Now, the agreement includes provisions for honouring martyr families, providing relief to the injured and forming commissions to strengthen anti-corruption efforts. Now, the agreement was sealed at the Prime Minister's office between the Gen Z Movement Alliance, the Council of Gen Z, the Gen Z Front and other splinter groups. However, the deepening rift within the Gen Z groups surfaced during this meeting, with members objecting to the rationality of the agreement, which was made in the absence of the president. One of the opposing Gen Z groups also tore the draft of the agreement that was floated to them, protesting against the deal after it was signed.
The agreement states that individuals who lost their lives during the Gen Z protests will be declared martyrs and their families will receive relief and support. A Martyrs Memorial Foundation will be established to honor their contributions. And the agreement also includes commitments to investigate any human rights violations during the protests.
The government and the Gen Z movement, they have agreed to form a high-level commission to propose improvements to Nepal's constitution. Areas of focus will include proportional representation, youth participation and reforms in the electoral system. Provisions such as introducing a none-of-the-above voting option, conducting primary elections and setting 21 as the minimum age for candidacy, which are included in the agreement. A Gen Z council will be established to advise the government and reinforce democratic processes in Nepal.
Now, the Gen Z uprising of September 8th and 9th resulted in the deaths of at least 76 people, forcing then Communist leader KP Sharma Oli to resign. An interim government was formed after the dissolution of parliament.
Well, the world stares skyward. Europe launches its first ever planetary defense drill as interstellar visitor 3I Atlas barrels through the solar system.
A cosmic stranger triggers a global wake-up call and humanity rehearses for the ultimate what if. Take a look at this next report for more details.
It glows faintly against the black, a blur of ice, dust and mystery hurtling through deep space. Astronomers call it 3I Atlas, only the third known interstellar object ever detected. And it's just brushed inside our cosmic neighborhood, a visitor from outside solar system. The interstellar comet, currently 273 million kilometers from Earth. The comet will make its closest approach to Earth on December 19, 2025, when it will be approximately 269 million kilometers away. The alarm bells are ringing loud. Europe has announced the launch of largest planetary defense exercise ever conducted. The drill, hailed as a continental wake-up call, brings together defense ministries, space agencies, military radar units, and emergency responders across 27 nations. Together, they will simulate a coordinated response against a hypothetical object with the mass and speed of 3I Atlas. A scenario that would unleash energy measured in multiple nuclear warheads. Across Europe, the message is clear. Humanity can't wait for impact to prepare. And yet, amid the tense atmosphere, scientists are quick to clarify one thing. The real 3I Atlas poses no threat. It will pass harmlessly through the outer solar system. Its path is distant, stable, and nowhere near our blue planet. But its arrival has sent a message Earth cannot ignore. Space is vast, unpredictable, and indifferent. The question is not if the next threat comes, but whether humanity will be ready.
Global investors and central banks have sought refuge in gold this year due to President Trump's unconventional economic plans.
However, currently silver is stealing the spotlight despite a historic rally in gold this year. A tightening in the availability of silver has propelled it to a remarkable 100% increase so far. That far outstrips gold's dramatic rally of about 60% this year. Both precious metals have seen a significant increase in interest from investors looking to protect themselves from geopolitical instability, rising prices and currency fluctuations. The uncertainty from Trump's foreign policies and his interference in the independence of the US Federal Reserve have also boosted precious metals.
But why is silver surging more than gold? Now, to answer that, we have to understand that in contrast to gold, silver is desirable not just for its scarcity and aesthetic value, but also for its many practical real-world attributes. Silver is used in electric cars, batteries, circuit boards and switches because it is a good electrical conductor. The metals paste is an important part of solar panels, of course, and is also used to cover medical devices. Inventory levels are at historic lows and investors are still frantically seeking more. That has raised the possibility of supply shortages which affect those industries. However, if prices remain high, it could hurt the profits of businesses that use silver. Elevated prices could also push firms to switch to cheaper alternative metals.
In addition, similar to gold, demand for silver as jewelry and coins is extremely popular in India and China, and the world's biggest buyers of the metal. Also, it's easier for small buyers to buy silver because it's much cheaper per ounce than gold and can be traded easily as well. Silver's price also tends to move more quickly during precious metal rallies. And two of China's biggest tech giants, ByteDance and Alibaba, they are reportedly moving quickly to place orders for NVIDIA's H200 artificial intelligence chips.
Well, after US President Donald Trump said that he would allow them to be exported to China. Now, according to a Reuters report, both the companies have asked NVIDIA about buying the H200 chips, the US firm's second most powerful AI chip, but they're still waiting for a clear green light from Beijing and seeking assurances from NVIDIA about supply, which remains tight. Until Trump's policy reversal, the most advanced AI chip that could legally enter China was NVIDIA's H20. The H200 is nearly 6 times more powerful than the H20.
Now, for months, Chinese regulators have barred state-funded data centers and tech firms for buying NVIDIA's AI chips, hurting NVIDIA's market share in the country. According to the information, Chinese regulators recently summoned representatives from Alibaba, ByteDance and Tencent, asking them to assess their demand for NVIDIA's H200 and promising a decision from Beijing soon.
The report said that only limited quantities of the H200 are currently in production as NVIDIA prioritizes its Blackwell chips and soon-to-launch Rubin architectures. The H200 is highly sought after in China because its training performance outstrips any domestic alternatives. The US policy shift has created an unusual situation. Older NVIDIA chips like the A100 and H100 remain under US export controls, but the more powerful H200 does not. Still, Chinese companies expect Beijing to review purchase requests and demand justifications as authorities balance the need for advanced training hardware with their push to boost domestic chip makers like Huawei and Cambricor.
Reacting to the US policy shift, China's foreign ministry has only said that the country values cooperation with the United States and declined to comment any further.
All right, now let's shift our focus to sports, where the debate is that should transgender athletes be allowed to compete in women's sports?
Well, the debate has been on for years, and world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka is the latest athlete to weigh in on it. Sabalenka believes that it is unfair for women to face biological men in professional tennis. Appearing on Piers Morgan's show, Sabalenka said, I quote here, I have nothing against them, but I feel like they still got a huge advantage over women. And I think it's not fair on women to face basically biological men. The woman has been working her whole life to reach her limit, and then she has to face a man who is biologically much stronger.
Well, even though they are currently absent from the elite of world tennis, the WTA Tour gender participation policy currently permits transgender women to participate if they have declared their gender as female for a minimum of 4 years, have lower testosterone levels and agree to testing procedures, and submitting a signed declaration of their female or non-binary identity. However, these conditions may be further varied by the WTA medical manager on a case-by-case basis. But there is one historic example of a transgender athlete competing on the women's tour.
Renee Richards competed on the women's professional tour from 1977 to 1981. before becoming Martina Navratilova's coach. Coincidentally, Navratilova was one of the first to oppose the participation of trans athletes in women's tennis. British singer Rick Astley was the main attraction at music therapy charity Nobel and Robin's annual Christmas carol service in London.
The musician headlined the event with his iconic hit, Never Gonna Give You Up. Well, Astley also brought festive cheer with classics like Winter Wonderland and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. The carol service, a long-running tradition since 1997, was held at St. Luke's Church in Chelsea. The evening featured a mix of performers from singers Katie Melua and Matt Bros to Chloe Stroll, and traditional carols were performed by a school children's choir, adding to the holiday warmth.
Nodder and Robbins click their fingers and I come running. It's as simple as that. Obviously the carol service is quite a thing, I think, because it sort of encapsulates a lot in the sense that we all know the carols, we all know a lot of the Christmas songs and stuff, and I think it relates very, very well to that moment of connection with music, something that you can all hang your hat on, as it were, to the work that they do.
Astley praised the choir and the intimate church setting. Nodder and Robbins, the UK's largest music therapy charity, supports children and adults living with illnesses, mental health conditions and learning disabilities.
I think if I'm brutally honest, when I hear a gospel choir, that just sends me somewhere else completely. And I've worked with a few gospel choirs over the years, but I think any group of people singing, whatever age they are, there's something really amazing about that.
And with Astley's performance blending nostalgia, pop and tradition, the night captured exactly what the charity stands for: music that connects, comforts and brings people together during the holiday season.
Alright viewers, that's a wrap on this edition of World DNA. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll step into a short break. Stay with us. News and updates continue on the other side. Come right back.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 100